Thanks for joining. My name is Chaya Teldon. I have the privilege of being a shlucha, an emissary of Chabad for many, many years. I'm going to say more than 40, and we'll leave it at that. I'd like to share some stories with you. I am a storyteller by nature, and I think that all of us know that stories, whether they're fiction, whether they're true, whether they're parables, whether they're jokes, can send a powerful message and impact us in different ways. So I'm going to share with you some of my favorite ones, and I hope you enjoy them. There was a couple that traveled to Lake Tahoe many years ago for their honeymoon, and they enjoyed everything that Lake Tahoe had to offer. They enjoyed the tennis, and they enjoyed the swimming, and they enjoyed the exercise room, and they enjoyed the trails, and they had a wonderful time. One of the days, the husband suggested that they go on a cruise and they go fishing. So they did. They booked tickets and they got their instructions, and out they went, and they had a wonderful time. They came back late in the afternoon, and to her dismay, the new bride looked down and said, "Oh my gosh, my diamond ring is gone." And the day was ruined. Actually, the week was ruined. Thank goodness the marriage wasn't ruined. And they left. They just packed up and they left. And it was really a bummer, as they say. 10 years later, although the husband hadn't purchased a new ring during that time, he said, "You know what? Things are good. Let's revisit." I checked online, and the hotel has had a facelift. Let's just do it. So they booked tickets and made reservations, and they went back to the same hotel. And indeed, it was stunning. The swimming pool had been done over, the tennis courts were refurbished, and they went on a boat fishing. And you wouldn't believe it. As they threw out their line and reeled it in, she yelled, "I have something," and she reeled in a massive fish. She was so excited. Of course, the husband is snapping pictures, and the captain of the boat took his knife, cut open this huge fish, and what do you think he saw inside there? Probably some of you said a ring. No, it was bones. Just bones and the innards of the fish. We want stories to end sometimes the way we think it should be. We want to write it in our own minds. But in case you haven't noticed, and certainly in today's situation, the script doesn't always go according to how we write it. But the reality is ours to deal with. I like that story. I'm going to share with you a few more. There's a famous Jewish character who lived in the 1700s. There were actually two brothers, Reza Shah and Reb Elimelech. Reza Shah was somebody special. I actually had the privilege of visiting his grave in Ukraine, I'm going to say, either Russia or the Ukraine. And I felt like saying to him, "Hey, Reza Shah, it's me, Chaya. I tell you stories all the time." So these are two of my favorites. The most classic one is that Reza Shah once said to his disciples, to his students, "You know what, guys? I'm not worried that in 120 years, they're going to say to me, 'Reza Shah, why weren't you Moses? Great. Why weren't you a leader like Moses?' And actually, I'm not afraid that they're going to say to me, 'Reza Shah, why weren't you like,' pick anybody, like Solomon? Why weren't you like King David?" He says, "I'm afraid that in 120 years, they will say to me, 'Reza Shah, why weren't you Zusha?'" We all have potential. We all have talents, God-given talents, and some that are acquired as we travel through life. Each one of us has the ability, the potential, the opportunity actually to rise to the occasion and be true to ourselves. We have to be who we are and what we are destined to be. That is really, really powerful. I want to be the very best me that I can be. Reza Shah and his brother, Elimelech, were traveling and they were arrested. It didn't take much for Jews in those days to be tossed into the clink. And indeed, they were arrested and now they're in a prison cell. Actually, with a bunch of others. The accommodations weren't great. Reb Zusha looks over in the corner and he saw there a chamber pot, right? That people were able to use for their natural bodily functions. There was no bathroom privileges. And he began to weep. And his brother said to him, Zusha, why are you crying? He said, this will be the first time in my life that I can't pray. There's a chamber pot there. There's human filth. And one is not allowed to pray in such circumstances, in such situation. And he was weeping bitterly. And his brother said to him, I don't understand. Why do you pray? He says, what do you mean, why do we pray? It's a mitzvah, it's a privilege. And it says in the code of Jewish law, one should pray. So his brother said to him, the same code of Jewish law that says pray also says don't pray when there's a chamber pot. He thought about it a minute. He said, you're right. His brother said to him, you are fulfilling God's will right now by not doing what you want to do, because that's what the Torah says. That's what the code of Jewish law says. You're fulfilling God's will. And the thought of that he was actually able to fulfill God's will, caused him such joy. He jumped up and he began to dance. Could you imagine, in the middle of the prison cell, he's dancing and he's singing and he's joyous. Prison guards came over and said to them, what's going on here? And one of the prisoners said, I don't know, but I think it has something to do with that chamber pot over there. So the prison guard said, really? In that case, then I'm going to take it out. He unlocks the cell and he takes it out and relocks it. And now Reb Zusha was able to pray together with his brother in that cell. Sometimes there are obstacles in our lives and we don't get it. God, what's the meaning of this? What's the purpose of this? Why am I experiencing this? Sometimes I understand the big picture and sometimes I don't. But certainly the Torah teaches us that whatever I'm experiencing is coming from upstairs. And that I am supposed to fulfill God's will, not asking him to do what I want. That's the conflict sometimes, when there's a tug of war, seemingly to me. God's pulling one way and I'm pulling the other way. But you must have heard wrong, God. I'm supposed to, we could all fill in the blanks. No. What's happening in my life, actually in our lives, in the global situation right now, in light of Corona, is part of the plan. Question is, can I be the best me given these set of circumstances? I'm going to try. I'm really going to try. This story had a profound effect on me. After the war, there was a young man who was able to escape the fiery flames of Europe, and he traveled in a circuitous way and made his way to Canada. At that time, Chabad was already established there, and this young man was welcomed into the Chabad Educational Institution, where he got a solid education. At one point in his young adult life, he traveled to New York, and he came to 770 Eastern Parkway, which is world headquarters of Chabad. And he spent the month of Tishrei, the holiday season for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchat Torah. And he had a wonderful, uplifting and spiritual time. At the end of the holidays, when he was about to go back to Canada, he went into the front office and he took out his checkbook as a young businessman. And he said, I think it's appropriate that one gives a donation, that one, kind of like a way of saying thank you for the experience. And not only that, thank you for what Chabad did for me in terms of my education. And he was very happy to do it. He wrote in the place where it says to whom, he wrote Chabad. He filled in the date. He signed it. But he was stymied. He was stumped. Well, how much was that worth? How much? What was my education worth? What was my holiday experience worth? What was it worth seeing the Rebbe? And he didn't know what to do. And he just stood there until he decided, I'm going to hand in the check blank, no amount, and I hope that someone from the office will call, perhaps even they will ask the Rebbe, how much should I give? And he left. A week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, no faxes, there's no emails, there's not instant communication that we have today. And he was a little bit surprised. One day, the phone rang. I used to do like this. Now I think I have to do like this. The phone rang, and it was Rabbi Chodikov, the Rebbe's chief secretary. It's not a good word for Rabbi Chodikov, but he said, hello, Mr. So-and-so. Yes, I understand that you came, you spent Tishrei here, and you gave in a check, but you left it blank. So the gentleman said, yes, that's correct. Rabbi Chodikov said, the Rebbe would like to know if he could suggest an amount that you make the check out to. And the gentleman said, yes, that's what I wanted. So Rabbi Chodikov said to him, the Rebbe would like if you could make out the check for $10,000. Now today that would be quite a substantial donation. Back then it was a huge amount. And he's there on the phone thinking, $10,000. Oh my goodness. If I transfer from this fund, and if I call in that loan, and if I cash in he could swing it. So hesitatingly, he said to Rabbi Chodikov, yes, you could tell the Rebbe that the check could be made out for $10,000. And with that, they both hung up. And he was thinking, what, how, when, if, and the phone rang. And he picked it up. And it was Rabbi Chodikov again. And Rabbi Chodikov said to him, Mr. So-and-so, the Rebbe would like to know if you're doing this b'simcha u'v'tuv levav, with joy and gladness of heart. If you're happy about doing this. Could you imagine? A minute ago, he was, and now he said, yes, Rabbi Chodikov, please tell the Rebbe, yes, I'm doing it with a full heart. And he hung up, thinking, isn't that what I wanted? Isn't that perhaps what we all want? What is my full potential? What am I capable of doing? What can I accomplish if we think big? Now, we don't all have to write checks, and we don't have to build, vast buildings or write the next bestseller, but imagine if someone was cheering us on and encouraging us. You can be all that you set out to be. Fill out your potential. Fill in the blank. Don't be a should've, could've, would've, if only I had. We really could do it. And again, I'm going to bring it back. Even in today's situation, when I'm in my house, and I don't like the expression stuck. We're not stuck. We are here by divine purpose. So what can I do, given my set of circumstances, in today's scenario? Powerful story. What am I capable of doing? What's my potential? Not what am I worth? What can I give? Beautiful. Okay, here's another story. Ready? There is a Chabad shliach, an emissary, in Beijing. His name is Rabbi Freilichs. Was invited a number of years ago to spend Shabbat, to spend Shabbos in the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn. And that was pretty unusual. There were a number of years when the Hasidic community there and the Chabad community did not exactly see eye to eye. That's for another discussion. So it was pretty awesome that Rabbi Freilichs was invited to spend Shabbos there. And on Shabbos, he was asked to speak. And this is one of the things that he shared, this story. In his community in Beijing, apparently they, on Friday night, after the services, have a catered meal where everyone who participated in the service is invited to participate in. One evening, shortly after the services, as everyone was sitting down, before, during the services, as soon as they started, gentleman in the back burst into tears and he cried throughout the entire service. Rabbi Freilichs was not, I don't think anybody would be comfortable with that. He went over, invited the gentleman and another man he was with to please join them for the meal. And would you be kind enough? I'd be happy for you to sit at my table. And they agreed. During the meal, they have a beautiful custom where they go around the table. And if you're comfortable and if you would like to, people introduce themselves, where they're from, and a salient point, a little bit about themselves or what brought them to Beijing. When it came to this man, Rabbi Freilichs was with a little trepidation, said, would you like to say a few words? And the man said yes. And he stood up and he said, my name is Sam Katz. I'm from Australia and I grew up in Europe. One day, the German army came into my town and I saw my family murdered in front of me. I was taken to concentration camps. I spent many months, not years, there. And I was liberated from Buchenwald. And after the war, after my liberation, when I was able to gather strength and health, I said, goodbye Europe, goodbye Jews, goodbye Judaism, goodbye God. And I ran as far as I could till I ended up in Australia. I established a business. Thank God I'm successful there. I have a family. This is my business partner that I brought with. And here we are in Beijing. My partner said to me, Sam, by the way, on Friday night, we're going to go to Chabad. I said, 1 minute. Chabad? I don't do Chabad. I don't do Judaism. I don't do synagogues or Shabbat. Nothing doing. My partner says to me, Sam, they have a catered meal. It's a good meal. Before the meal, they say a few prayers, they sing a few songs. Don't get nervous. It's worth the meal. I said, okay. Rabbi, I came to synagogue tonight. More than 50 years have passed since I've been in a synagogue. When I heard the prayers, I was transported back to my youth, to my shtetl, to my family, to a comfort zone that I had long ago tossed away, and I couldn't stop crying. Thank you, Rabbi. Everybody was moved by Samuel Katz's story. And then a woman on the far side of the dining room stood up and said, excuse me, Mr. Katz, perhaps you knew my father. My father was also in Buchenwald, at the liberation. My father, Naftuli Kogan, maybe you know him. Sam Katz turned white. Naftuli Kogan? Naftuli Kogan? Naftuli Kogan leapt? Naftuli Kogan is alive? Do I know him? We were like this in Buchenwald. In fact, there were three of us. We were known as the Kohanim, as the priests of Buchenwald. People used to come to us and ask us to bless them. Do I know Naftuli Kogan? He's alive? Ecstatic beyond. And the whole room was just in awe, crying and just remarking at the connection. How odd. He came from Australia. He's in Beijing. He knew him from book. Unbelievable. As Rabbi Freilichs is telling this story in the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn, a man stands up and he says, Rabbi Freilichs, would you be so kind as to tell Samuel Katz and Naftuli Kogan that the third Kohen, Yaakov Khan, is alive and well here in Brooklyn. Do you get that? Europe, Australia, Beijing, Brooklyn, all comes together. Nothing happens by chance. God is the master architect, builder, traffic controller, instructor, and nothing happens by chance. That story has helped me a lot. Things that I experienced, that I have experienced, that I'm able to share with others. You know what? There's a concept called Bashert, Hashgacha Pratit, divine providence, where God is with us every step of the way. Two more stories. Now, stories that have been around a long time have a certain fluidity. They, in one story, the person might be called Rabbi Yankel, in another story, David. They say about stories of the Baal Shem Tov, if you believe everything, you're a fool, and if you don't believe it, you are a heretic. This story happened on Tuesday, and it was sunny. Not sure. Was it this holiday or that shtetl? Maybe. Unless it's written, maybe, maybe not. The beauty, especially when we're dealing with holy people, is that I believe that the Rebbe, the holy person, the tzaddik, the saintly person in the story could have happened. He could have done it. He could have mastered that. He could have displayed that divine providence. So here's this story the way I heard it. There was a Hasek living in Europe who had studied. He was pretty wise. Could call him a Talmud Chacham, a venerable sage, and he knew this concept that Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Hanavi, comes to every Jewish home the night of the Seder, the night of the Passover Seder. And history has recorded that many, many times people have actually met, encountered, studied with Eliyahu Hanavi. So this gentleman, approached his teacher. I heard it in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement. And he said, Rebbe, I want to meet Eliyahu Hanavi. I want to see an angel. I want to encounter him. And the Baal Shem Tov dissuaded him, brushed him off. But this man wasn't giving up so easily. He said, Rebbe, I know you know the formula. There must be a way. You can share it with me that I could see Elijah. Shortly before Pesach, before Passover, this gentleman was called to the Baal Shem Tov's court. He was summoned, and the Baal Shem Tov said to him, you know what? I've decided to share with you the information, and I'm going to tell you how you can see Eliyahu Hanavi, how you will meet. The man was thrilled. The Baal Shem Tov said, first thing is you have to tell your family you're not going to be there this year for the Seders. I'm sorry, but you're going to travel. He said, okay, Rebbe, I'll tell them. They'll manage. What do I have to do? Baal Shem Tov said, I want you to go shopping. Shopping? That's a bit odd. The Baal Shem Tov said, I want you to go shopping and I want you to purchase a lot of food for the Seder. That's 4 meals at night and a day and at night and a day. Wine, matzah, fish, the works. And I want you to buy clothing for young children. And I want you to travel the edge of this and this village. You're going to find a tumbling down, ramshackle hut. Very, very poor people inside. And I want you to spend Passover there. Not a problem. And dancing out, he informed his family. He, the day before Passover, purchased food, clothing, loaded them on a wagon, told his horse, giddy up. And they traveled and traveled and traveled until he came to the edge of that town. And lo and behold, there is a hut. He pulls up. He parks his horse in the parking spot in front of the hut, knocks on the door, and a woman peeks out with 2 kids holding onto her sides. And he says, Shalom Aleichem. I've been traveling. I am not going to have time to get home for Passover. Is it possible that I stay with you? Can I be your guest? She was thrilled and shocked at the same time. She said, we would love to host you. What an awesome mitzvah. But we don't have any food. There's not a problem. I just happen to have a carriage full of food outside. And with that, the kids squealed and squeaked and with delight helped him bring all of the food that they had never in their lives seen before into the house. The table was quickly set, and as sunset fell, began Pesach. He was thrilled for his own reasons. The family was thrilled for their reasons. They had wine and matzah and a man who was able to say such beautiful words of Torah, and the singing was just magnificent. They really felt an incredible amount of freedom going out of Egypt. After the meal, say Birkat HaMazon, he blessed God. And now is the time, go open the door for Elijah the prophet. And he cannot contain himself. The door is open, and I think he saw what I saw, maybe what you saw. Nobody was there. He was beyond devastated. He couldn't believe it. What? Where? I did it. And then he thought, oh, maybe only I'm supposed to see him. Maybe the family's not supposed to see him. They finished the Seder, drank the cups of wine, said Shema. They went off to sleep, and he remained by the table the entire night, thinking maybe the door is going to open, and maybe Elijah is going to reveal something. Nothing doing. Okay, the morning, he said, you know, maybe the Baal Shem Tov meant at the second Seder, maybe tonight. So he davened, he sang with the children, they played, they were wearing their new clothes. It was such a beautiful, festive feeling in the house. And then comes nightfall, set the table, and they have the second Seder. They take their time with questions and singing the Manishtana, the 4 questions. People are happy. Open the door for the angel, Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Hanavi. And the door is opened. Okay. Next day, pray, sing, they eat, they make Havdalah, they end the first 2 days of Passover. He thanks his host and hostess, and he gets into the wagon, goes back to his village, straight to the Baal Shem Tov synagogue. He finds the Baal Shem Tov. He says, Rebbe, it didn't work. The formula didn't work. The Baal Shem Tov said, what? Can't be. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go back for the last days of Passover. You have to tell your family you're not going to be with them. Sorry. This time, you have to double the amount of food. You have to, now that you know the children's sizes and ages, buy more clothing, buy toys, books. Take 2 wagons. Travel back to the same village, to the same hut, to the same family. This time, before you knock on the door, I want you to pause. Okay? Done. He says goodbye to his family, buys all the food, loads up 2 wagon loads, travels to the town, to the village, finds the house. Before he knocks on the door, he pauses and listens. Mom, I'm hungry. I'm starving. Ma, we haven't eaten since yesterday. Ma, what's gonna be? And as he listens, he hears the mother saying, Kinderlach, my sweet children, last week before Pesach, we had no food. Didn't I tell you then that Eliyahu Hanavi himself will bring us food? And he did. I'm telling you, my sweet children, he's going to come again today. Elijah himself, the great angel, and he will take good care of us. Sometimes we want to see angels. Mystical, incantation, spiritual, lofty. Sometimes, my friends, we have to be. I leave you with one story more. I heard this, I believe it was 3 years ago, from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson, and it has left an indelible impression on me. Really a serious impact. Before the story, I will confess, I was born a night person, not a morning person. I'd rather stay up to 2, 3, 4 in the morning. I loved color Warren Camp. I could stay up all night. Just don't speak to me in the morning. I'm not a morning person. With coffee, without coffee, it doesn't matter. So you'll see why this story had an impact on me. In the 1980s, if I'm not mistaken, early, maybe late 70s, I'm not sure. Rabbi Jacobson's father, Gershon Jacobson, of blessed memory, traveled behind the Iron Curtain to Russia. It was not easy then. Chabad, from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, was responsible for the underground network of yeshivas, keeping Judaism alive and that flame of Torah and Hasidus burning in Russia. Gershon Jacobson was the editor of the Yiddish newspaper Allgemeiner Journal. He went to Russia and he met secretly with tens upon tens upon tens of Jews. He brought back with him about 400 panim, letters written to Lubavitcher Rebbe. Gershon Jacobson had an appointment with the Rebbe at about midnight one evening shortly after his return. And together with the Rebbe, they read every single letter with tears flowing from the Rebbe's holy eyes and Gershon Jacobson. Every detail the Rebbe wanted to know: livelihood, health, job, education, children, marriages, every detail that Gershon Jacobson could summon. The Rebbe 4 hours worth of conversation. When the last letter had been written, Gershon Jacobson stood up to take leave, back out of the Rebbe's holy presence. And he saw that the sun was just cracking the door. From the corner of his eye, he said, he saw the Rebbe stand up, put his arms like this and say, Anaya Tug, a new day. Since I've heard that story, as I wake up each morning, as a Jew is accustomed to do, according to the code of Jewish law, and we recite, Modeh ani lefanecha, thank you, God, for returning my soul to me and trusting me that I can do your job today. Let's partner. I say my Modeh ani, Rabba emunasecha, great is your faith in me, and then I too put my hands up and I say, Anaya Tug, a new day. What have you got for me, God? What's going on? What are we partnering with today? And I actually do it with a smile, which for me, as I said, is pretty unusual. I can do mornings now because it's not just another day of drudgery. What day of isolation are we in? 1,217, 18? I'm not sure. It's not true. I have a purpose today as if I was outside doing my routine thing, being Chabad emissary, teaching, going. In my house, I have a purpose, and it is a new day. I hope you enjoyed these stories. I hope there's something in it for everybody. And I hope we can, with a healthy, positive attitude, stay on top of things, stay upbeat, because life is good. We are here, we are alive, and there are still many stories that you and I can write. Thanks for listening. All the best.